Search for causes. It's the search for causes beyond who made the error or who violated the policy. It's the search for why systems sometimes do not work, why humans sometimes make mistakes, and why humans sometimes drift into at-risk behavior.
When grave errors do occur, it really is something that we still continue to take seriously. We still do root cause analysis. However, we recognize that now there's another step in the process.
And now you come into a room, we do a root cause analysis on what went wrong in your particular case. Everybody comes in as equals and we discuss this. And I think people are freed by that somewhat. They're freed by looking at other people and saying, wow, it wasn't just me.
Internal transparency. It's the willingness to talk within the organization about the risks inherent in the mission of the healthcare institution. It's the ability to discuss risk at the local level so that each and every employee knows the hazards that lie ahead.
Anytime we meet with a patient about an error, they can have anybody there with them that we want. We encourage physicians to be part of that. We've even had staff who've made mistakes come and talk to the patient about it, write letters to the patients. We have allowed everyone to become part of the process. In the past, we used to protect people from that. We thought we were helping the staff and helping the physicians by saying, we'll take this on, we'll have someone be your spokesperson. And now what we've done is say, we're going to open it up to everybody who wants to be a part of this.
Managers are more on board now than they ever have been. They're more excited. We have our Thursday meetings where we bring in the group and we talk about our incidences, and it's more of the barriers within the departments have certainly been broken down.
Responses to human error. It's the ability to restrain our seemingly natural tendency to want to punish the last person who touched the object or person harmed. It's the willingness to console rather than discipline the human being that makes a predictable, inevitable human error.
It's very important that we separate reckless behavior from human error. Research has shown that punishing human error does not work. Therefore, to separate the two and to punish the reckless behavior and not the human error, and to console the nurse who's made a mistake and made an error. It's the common sense approach. It's the only way we can move forward and learn from our mistakes.
Responses to reckless behavior. It's the fortitude to take action when the organization identifies a reckless employee who knowingly endangers the lives or property of others. It's an accountable organization willing to use disciplinary action when warranted.
One of the biggest barriers is that individuals initially hearing the term just culture related in their minds with a blameless approach and feel that individual licensees will not be held accountable for their actions, when indeed, as you work with just culture, you come to realize that it provides you the mechanism to assure that individuals are indeed being held responsible for their actions, but not being inappropriately held responsible for those things that are outside of their control.
Severity bias. It's the rejection of the no harm, no foul approach to accountability. It's the turnaway from how bad the patient was harmed to the design of the system and the behavioral choices of those working in those systems. It's about proactively working the risks before harm occurs.
In the past, you always thought you look at the end result, like what was the outcome for the patient. I'll use the patient as an example. What happened to the patient? But now we don't think that way. We look at the process, making sure there was no system issues and all. So we look at was the employee properly trained in this area? Was there any system issues? And if there were system issues, we go back and we fix that too.
Equity. It's about being fair and consistent with every employee group. It's about seeing every employee as a fallible human being with the propensity to drift and the occasional misstep into reckless behavior. Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and support staff all working to the same set of expectations.
When you're an administrator, I think just culture initially gives you talking points. I've had physicians come to me really angry over an error that occurred, and the first thing they wanted was for me to fire the nurse who made the error. Get them out of the hospital, they shouldn't be allowed to work here, stop this from happening here. And when you have just culture in your facility, you listen and you say, I understand. It's frightening for everybody, for the family. It could be devastating for the patient, certainly is for the staff involved. And when you have just culture, your talking points become, doctor, I understand. I'm frustrated with the things that have happened here that have gone wrong. I'd like to fix this with you. Why don't we sit down? I'd like you to be part of our root cause analysis here at the hospital and help us figure out what we could have done better in this whole situation. And it allows you to kind of diffuse that anger, slow down some of your responses so you don't make a knee-jerk, and that you give them a framework to operate in. Okay, well, I could become part of that. I could see maybe we could have done something better. Maybe I could have double-checked what went on. Maybe I could have changed some of my medical thinking, how I look at this patient, to support the nursing staff better. And I think it really encourages teamwork with the physicians.
Again, it's a destination that takes time, yet it's a journey that provides immediate results in the learning culture, in the area of accountability, and in the outcomes that patients and families expect. To make the destination, the journey must begin. There are 6 high-level steps. Executive buy-in. It starts at the top. In this particular culture change, it starts with senior leadership both talking the talk and walking the walk.
Leadership has to continue to reinforce this message. It can't be seen as a short-term fix. It has to be part of the culture.
It really does begin with leadership and modeling the behaviors that you expect. You clearly have to have acceptance and buy-in from members of the medical staff. And they have to be willing to model those behaviors.
System and policy change. It's a step into system design, yet in this case the design of human resource policies and the design of the learning system, from the risk reporting system to the Sentinel event investigation process to the corrective action policy.
We realized that the language in the policies was not just culture. And I think that you have to be consistent and all of your things have to be aligned. You can't just say, well, you're not going to be in trouble. We're not going to make this punitive. We're going to make this more consoling. We're going to coach you through this. But then if your HR policies say, after the second error, there's going to be consequences, it doesn't all align.
Managerial training. It's giving skills to managers to reverse what may be 20 years of bad managerial habits. It's the ability to investigate, to help design safer systems, and to coach and mentor employees onto safe behaviors.
I find that the algorithm to be an ideal tool in clearly defining some of our performance and behavioral expectations, actually. It's become a very efficient part of our processes here. It's kind of difficult sometimes to transition from the way that one would conventionally think on how to handle circumstances. We tend to be a little more subjective or prescriptive in much of our approach. But it has given us a means by which we can kind of approach things a little more objectively.
Staff training. It's giving staff the confidence to focus on what's important, without fear that their inevitable human fallibility will lead to their dismissal. It's about gaining their trust in the reporting system, their help in redesigning systems, and it's about their commitment to the safest possible choices.
We initially chose not to train our employees on just culture, and part of that came from the guidance of other hospitals from the Minnesota Collaborative that we were able to teleconference with. That we wanted the managers to show the employees what just culture was, but as we continued down our journey, we really felt like that needed to change and we needed to educate our employees. So we are now in the process of implementing training, multi-tiered training for employees and managers, and that will also encompass new managers.